Hi everyone, my name is Sabrina McCrocklin and I'm going to be talking about Chapter 11 from the textbook Inclusion Strategies for Secondary Classrooms. That's the chapter about improving higher order thinking skills. The definition of higher order thinking skills is the use of abstract structure for thinking, the application of sound rules of logic, and the organization of knowledge into an integrated system. Students with exceptional learning needs see only an unrelated conglomeration of facts, which implies as teachers we must make instruction explicit and structured. So the best way to help students with um, exceptional learning needs is to spell everything out for them and make it structured so they can easily follow along. The textbook outlines 5 principles for teaching higher order thinking skills. It says that teachers should, number one, help students organize what they know. One of the strategies that they use is graphic organizers, which help ease the cognitive load and free up working memory for higher order tasks. They are very effective because they help make highly abstract ideas and usually verbal information into a visually represented form. Number two, they build on what students already know, which we call scaffolding. Number three, they help information processing through explicit modeling of problems, which is why it's very important for teachers to do examples for students with ELN. Number four, they facilitate thinking through elaboration. And number five, they make their thinking processes explicit. So teachers should elaborate on all of their ideas to make it as explicit for their students with ELNs as they can. Now I'm going to talk about a few different strategies that you can help to teach students how to learn higher level thinking skills. So storyboards are a good tool. Storyboards type 1 are a strategy for project planning that begins with a problem. They can also be used to teach the inquiry approach to the research process. It's a good tool for inclusion for ELN students because sequencing can be made explicit, which can help eliminate any confusion. Reasoning is facilitated by the discussion, which is paired with a visual tool of the storyboard, and metacognition is supported as students are taught the process. So basically, as students learn how to create a storyboard, it helps facilitate the learning of reasoning and thinking about thinking. The textbook outlines how to help students learn to storyboard. So the first thing you do is brainstorm the problem. And then after that, they have a critical thinking session to evaluate their ideas. So they will look at students' ideas in a visual representation, which will show them how they're related, and they have an opportunity to rearrange their ideas or discard them if they're not being helpful to the discussion. And the textbook suggests using color-coded cards for the different types of ideas. So the second type of storyboard requires students to sketch or draw a series of cartoon frames. This practice enhances the integration of the text propositions, so students are able to learn what the text is saying better by drawing it out. It can also be used as a pre-writing strategy. The use of storyboards can help eliminate confusion because cause and effect is made explicit. Reasoning is developed as the cause and effect nature of events are demonstrated. The storyboard is very beneficial to ELN students because they're able to visualize what they read, which helps them understand sequences, comprehension, and analysis. It helps develop linear thinking. It helps students keep track of multiple points of view in literature, discover inconsistencies in the text, and recall critical things that are happening. So the use of the storyboard helps students not only understand cause and effect, but how to think linearly and how to keep track of multiple viewpoints within one piece of literature. Flowcharts are another good graphic organizing tool that can help students understand cause and effect. They help develop reasoning because the relationship between events and their causes are made clear, which can help cut down confusion because everything is made explicit in a visual form. Teachers also often use flowcharts to help their students understand what is expected of them for an assignment or within the classroom. Venn diagrams are something we're all pretty familiar with. They are a type of diagram in which circles may or may not overlap, which shows students how to compare and contrast. It also shows relationship amongst classes. It helps reduce frustration in students when relationships are made made explicit by the use of the circles. Um, it also helps students gain skills in literal and relational comprehension, as well as developing the use of logic. Another good graphic organizer to help learn higher order level thinking is the compare and contrast matrix. It scaffolds critical thinking and improves the ability to formulate arguments. It is effective to help ELN students because it increases their analytical skills. Reasoning is supported when the invisible is made visible, like in the Venn diagram. Um, it's a good way to support reasoning through the use of the compare and contrast matrix, and it helps us discriminate between confusing concepts. So there's a couple kinds of matrices. One of them is the evaluation by elimination by aspects matrix, which is, I know, a mouthful. This elimination by aspects teaches students a strategy for evaluating something by external criteria. Um, it helps increase motivation when something that seems impossible is made doable for students with ELN. And it also keeps their attention because you're asking them to make judgments and see whether something does or does not fit the certain criteria. Um, Organization is assured by the very nature of the strategy. So, because students must compare things to see if they fit the criteria, it helps them stay organized. So, there are two types of external criteria: an examination of internal consistency. It's very much like the process of elimination. They will have to choose between several alternatives, and once they eliminate one aspect of an alternative, they've eliminated the entire future potential of that decision along that branch. So, in order for teachers to help their students learn this strategy, they must first help students identify the criteria in which their decision is to be made, and then help the students prioritize this criteria. So, they have to help the students select options which to test their criteria, and then enter them into the matrices they see fit. And then options are eliminated until all the criteria is met. So basically, students go one by one, deciding whether or not the options they have meet with a criterion. And then if they don't, then they discard them. And if they do, they keep them. And then they go all the way down until they figure out what fits and what does not. You can also use the same strategy, but evaluating things by addition. So you keep adding things up to make sure that they all meet the criterion. And then on the next slide, we will see, and here you see the two different kind of matrices. On the left, the elimination by aspects, and on the right, the evaluation by addition. So as a future English teacher, reasoning by the use of analogy and metaphor is something that I'm going to be teaching a lot to my students. Um, I have a very useful Venn diagram on this slide that talks about the differences and the similarities between analogy, metaphor, and simile. Metaphors are effective to teach students higher level thinking because they help students visualize information. They can also help students recall certain facts. In the textbook, it said that metaphor is really helpful to teach students math problems, which didn't make sense until I thought about word problems, which always says Susie has 5 apples and Bobby has 5 apples. So how many apples do they have together? So that made a lot of sense to me because it's a visual representation of an abstract idea. Um, Through the use of analogy and metaphor, analytic reasoning skills are developed as students begin to see that wholes can be analyzed and by examining their parts. And then synthetic thinking skills are developed as students are encouraged to begin thinking about ways they can use metaphors in their writing or in their life, and they'll start noticing them other places and making bigger connections. And then attention is often garnered when information is represented or manipulated in creative ways. And we all know that poets love similes, analogies, and metaphors. It's a great creative way to relate the same information in a different way. And those are some of the strategies for teaching higher level thinking to students with ELN. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. Thanks.